Hello everyone, my name is PaperNapkin and welcome back to another episode of Let's Play Final Fantasy I. In the last episode we met up with Bahamut, the King of the Dragons, who mentions that he wants us to prove our true courage to him. But you would think killing 2 of the 4 fiends would be proof enough, but he wants something more. In order to get that something more, we need to go to the castle of the Ordeal. And I'm being surrounded by the dragons because I guess they don't like me bad-mouthing Bahamut. In order to get to the castle, we just need to go to the northeast a little bit. There's actually 2 different ways you can get there, and I've kind of touched upon this before. One's a bit of an exploit, and the other's kind of the intended path. The first way involves taking the airship, which makes sense since we just got it, and this is kind of how the story's kind of progressing. The other way is actually using the ship and the canoe. If you take your ship down here, you can disembark into your canoe and just kind of walk down here to the castle. If you're taking the airship, kind of have to take a little bit of a longer route just because you can't really park here, or even here. You have to go all along this way, even past this desert, over here, until you finally get a suitable landing spot. Kind of annoying, especially since there's quite a few monsters to fight along the way, but I'm gonna do it just because I could use the experience points, so I'll meet you all over at the castle. Now that we're at the Castle of Ordeal, let's go check this place out. This is actually probably my favorite place in the game, even though it's a little bit short, but there's just so much going on here. There's a lot of really good items to pick up along the way, there's a lot of interesting monsters, and we also get our true proof of courage. Now, if you decide to come here before doing the whole Gurgle Volcano point, just keep in mind the enemies are pretty strong here, and while the rewards are high, the risks are equally as high. Because I remember when I finished killing the Earth Fiend, I was pretty low level, and yeah, even now I'm probably going to have a little bit of problems. But we'll see how it goes. Now, do you remember that crown that we had that we were supposed to give to Astos? Then we found out it was Astos and we didn't like him and he tried to rub our butts. Well, you actually need the crown to get past this point. I talked to this man, he mentions that the crown is required to take the test, and he gives us good luck and all that. First things you want to do, go over here. In this room, there's a little throne. It doesn't look like we can do much, but it turns out to be a hidden teleporter, which is kind of an interesting mechanic for this dungeon. Or it's not really a dungeon, I guess. We'll call it a castle. And that it uses kind of teleports on the same level. They're kind of like glorified staircases, but I mean, you gotta keep in mind, this is probably the first game of its kind that kind of used this sort of strategy, and you know it's been copied along the way. Well, not copied, but they thought it was a good idea and they decided to use it. So pretty much just kind of follow along, take the pillars as you see them, until you get to a point where there's 2 to choose from. One of them will take you back to the entrance, which is pretty annoying, and the other one will let you continue onward. The general rule of thumb for this area is to go for the bottom one, because that one more often than not will take you on to the next area. And we should take the bottom one here. And yep, things are looking good. We're not getting too lost. And don't be afraid to use your spell charges to heal and whatnot, just because this place is pretty small. Next up, we want to go here, because this one is technically a little bit lower. We have a bit of a fork, doesn't matter which way you go, because they kind of end up in the same area. If we come in here, we'll come across a fight with some mud golems, and you can come across 1 to 4, I believe. These things don't have a lot of hit points, but they can pack a pretty mean punch, especially if they cast fast on them spells. So what you want to do, you want to take them out as fast as possible. I'll throw off an Ice 2, see what that does. And for defeating them, we get a pretty nice reward. And wow, Paper's one shot of them with 205 damage, pretty crazy. Ice 2 didn't do a whole lot, so maybe don't use that spell. And yeah, look, 60 damage against Paper, that's pretty crazy. If that hits someone else, that can end up doing quite a bit of damage, to say the least. So make sure you have a lot of hit points going into this fight, and don't be afraid to heal up afterwards too. And wow, another 1 hit from Paper. He's doing some pretty wicked damage now. And so the fight wasn't that bad. If you're lucky, you'll get 1. Pretty good experience points, and Alexa gains a level up, which means more likely Pancake and Hope do as well. And yep, very nice. Very nice. So for defeating the golems, we get the Zeus Gauntlet, which sounds pretty awesome. I mean, it's named after a god and all that. So you're probably thinking, oh wow, that's probably an upgrade for our fighter. Well, no. What you want to do actually is give it to Hope, or whoever your white mage is. You can actually equip it But the thing about the Zeus Gauntlet is, it's one of those unique items that if you use it in battle, it actually has an ability associated with it. So it lets you cast, in this case, Lightning 2 as often as you want. It doesn't cost any spell charges, and you can use it in place of your physical attack, which is what I'm going to do from now on, just because, I mean, white mages don't do that much damage, and Lightning 2 hits all enemies. So it's really useful for taking out large groups of weaker enemies, and if you haven't gone to the Gurgu Volcano, this would be awesome there, just because there's so many fights along the way. Next up, we want to head to this pillar here, I believe. I think I always get this one wrong. And nope, that's the right one. Awesome. Head down this staircase, or rather up that staircase, and we're getting pretty close to the end, so hopefully we'll find some more treasures along the way. If we take one step here, we'll come across a fixed encounter with some nightmares. They like to use the snorting ability. I don't remember what it does, if it does anything important at all. Just try to, focus your attention on one and take them out as quickly as possible. They don't do a heck of a lot of damage. I mean, even against non-fighters, they won't do too much. See, that was the snorting, but whenever I come across them, it always seems to be ineffective. So I don't know if it's bugged or if it actually does something, but just a really low percentage to hit. And okay, it casts darkness, which is, it doesn't make any difference in this game, so don't have to worry too much. They do look pretty cool though. I like the colors, which is another testament to the chipset of the Nintendo. And these things are taking a lot longer than I thought they would. And I probably should be using the Zeus Gauntlet. I'm still kind of not used to using that strategy at this point, but hopefully I'll get in the habit of doing that. Just because it makes things so much easier to get some consistent damage from your white mage. So you just go to your items, click on Zeus Gauntlet, and voila, cast Lightning 2. 78 damage, which is pretty crazy, because that's right up there with Alexa and Pancake sometimes. So if you don't pick that up, I don't know why you wouldn't. Make sure you do. If we come over here, we have another chest, which contains the Heal Staff, which is another one of those items like the Zeus Gauntlet, except it casts Heal. And actually, I'm just going to equip it to my white mage, because I won't be doing any physical attacks with my silver hammer or any weapon later on. But if you use this in battle, it casts Heal 1, so it's really useful for getting a little bit of hit points back, especially saving on your heal potions. And if we head over here, we should have some more treasure. We do, okay. And in this one here, we have an Iron Gauntlet, which is completely useless. Here we have an Ice Sword, which is very nice to have. And we have a gold armlet. So for the ice sword, since we already have one on our fighter, I'm going to give this one to Alexa, just because it is a slight upgrade. And then for the gold armlet, you're probably thinking, well, let's give it to Hope since she has the silver one. I'm not actually going to do that. I'm going to give it to Alexa, just because he only has the silver armor, and that's kind of outdated, and he's in the second position, and he's starting to take some pretty crazy damage, so anything will help at this point. So it's a good idea to give it to your red mage there. Now we can head down here, and I believe there is some more treasure. Yep. And now 3 of them actually contain treasure. Mostly just gold. But the one on the left there actually is empty. That's one of those chests, well, there's a house there. It's one of those chests that depends on if you pick it up elsewhere. So since we got the other treasure before, it'll just be empty. I don't actually know what will be in there if you don't get the other chest, but maybe you guys can find that out and let me know in the comments. But as you can see, this probably contains the last little treasure that we need, which is the true proof of courage. So let's go pick it up. And we get a tail, which is actually a rat tail, which is kind of interesting choice of your true proof of courage, if I can say that properly. And yeah, ooh, it stinks. And so to get out of here, we just need to step on that throne room, but before we can do that, we have to take out some zombie dragons. These things aren't too bad. If you just use your fire spells and your harm spells, should be able to take them out pretty quickly. And I don't think they hit too hard. They don't have a lot of hit points. Pretty vanilla. They don't have any special abilities per se. So we'll just try to take them out as quickly as possible. And it's one of those, situations again where you can come across 1 to 4, 2 being average, I guess. But I mean, keep in mind, if you're coming here after you get the canoe the first time, these things could probably do some pretty decent damage to you. And if you don't have a lot of spell charges, if you've been using them up to heal, you could be in for quite a bit of trouble. So that's why I tend to come here after I do all that, just because not only is it easier, it just makes more sense in terms of the story. Pretty good experience points. Wow, I'm impressed. So we can just leave here. And voila, we're done with the Castle of Ordeal. So next up, we want to head back to Bahamut and give him the rat tail, and hopefully he'll kind of give us some sort of reward now that we've proved our true courage. So I'll go in the airship and I'll meet you over there. Now that we're back at Bahamut, let's give him the rat tail and see what he does for us. So the tail of the rat proves our courage, and he'll give us the true honor due to true warriors. And bam! Just like that, we look pretty awesome. We've got a huge chest now. We're looking pretty swag, look at that. What this actually means is that we've gone through a job transformation. We've kind of ascended to the next level, and as you can see, everyone has their own new sprites now. Let's take a look at everyone. So whereas before Paper was a fighter, he is now a knight. And what this means, as a knight, you can now use pretty much all the equipment in the game, which means you have access to the more damaging weapons and the more protective armor. You also have access to the first level 3 white magic spells. So what I mean by that is you get, I think, 4 charges for like level 1, 2, and 3. Not really too useful, but I mean it's a nice compliment. And you don't actually start learning them until way later on. As you can see, you don't have any spell charges just yet. It's kind of useful if you run out of heal potions and you want to throw down a couple cures, but other than that, not too important. Lexa is now a red wizard, meaning now he can use a little bit more magic in terms of higher level spells. I'll kind of point out the spells that he can use from now on once we get to the stores that actually sell it, but just keep in mind the red wizard now has access to more spells. Not all of them. There's still some black magic spells and white magic spells that they're just not able to get even as a red wizard. Pancake is now a master as opposed to being a black belt. This is probably the useless of the transformations just because it doesn't really do too much. The one thing it does do is lower the magic defense of the character, which is kind of strange. It doesn't show up on your stats here, it's one of those hidden stats, but it actually goes down, which is not that great. And Hope the White Mage is now a white wizard, meaning she has full access to all the white magic spells, which is going to be really useful, but also really expensive. Now, if you had a black mage, it'll now be a black wizard, and it would have more access to all the black magic spells. And lastly, if you have a thief, it would now become a ninja, which is probably the best transformation just because the thief is really useless and the ninja is really awesome. The ninja can use a lot more equipment. It's pretty comparable to a fighter in that it can use most weapons and most armor. And also, it can use up to level 3 black magic spells. And there's some pretty useful black magic spells in there. So we're talking about, Fast, Lightning 2, Fire 2, whatnot, so it's a nice compliment to have. I mean, it's not incredibly overpowered or whatnot, but it definitely makes it worthwhile having a thief at this point. But really, at this point in the game, it gets a lot easier. It doesn't really matter what combination of job classes you have. Once you've gotten to this point, give yourself a clap, pat on the back, you've done a great job, things go, pretty smoothly from here on out, and so I think this is a good place to end the episode now that we've kind of accomplished our transformation. We've kind of signified that we've established ourselves as true heroes. And in the next episode of Let's Play Final Fantasy 1, we're going to head over to the next locations that we're going to have to go to, which you don't know where to go, but I do. Until then, my name is PaperNapkin. Take it easy, folks.